Do we have to vandalize elephant habitats for solar energy generation? I'm the conservationist Jayantha Wijesingha from Rainforest Protectors of Sri Lanka. By the 1990s, Sri Lanka was completely dependent on renewable energy. Predominantly thanks to the Mahavali cascade systems, big reservoirs built and the hydroelectricity generation that was done thereafter. And at the time, we were able to produce energy with the amount of rain that we used to receive by filling all our reservoirs in the hills and generating hydroelectricity through reservoirs such as Victoria, Randanigala, Rantambe, so on and so forth. Even today, up to the most recent Moragahakanda Kaluganga project, during the rainy season, our electricity is generated predominantly using hydroelectricity. However, roughly around 2006 to 2008, we planned on building Norochole coal power plant, which today provides roughly about 40% of our energy need, and that it produces about 900 megawatts of electricity. And with the rains, 60% of our energy even today generated from our hydroelectric dams. During the dry season, during the drought, since there is not enough rain and since the reservoirs are not filled enough, we have to depend on other energy sources such as diesel energy and private energy developers through whom we get the rest of the supply. And in this context, we have to look at what are our options. We have so much of solar energy potential compared to the energy demand of this country, which is very small. But we need to look at these renewable energy potential in a manner. We need to develop them in a manner that it does not cause destruction, that you cannot consider it as sustainable energy or renewable energy any longer. For instance, I can explain a few things such as some of these developments that we have done in a wrong way, like the mini hydro developments. We have dammed most of our streams and rivers, and we have dried up so much of waterfalls for mini hydro development, and we have completely stopped the fish migration and have caused so much of devastations to the riverine. They have caused more disasters, more damage than possibly running it on fossil fuel, if you look at the overall impact. And some mini hydros that were developed run off the river, and some of these developments were, for instance, in the past, how we develop mini hydros are very sustainable. So similarly, when you put up wind power plants, you need to look at what areas that you can put wind power, or how you should develop it in a way that you don't disturb it. Now, for instance, there was a project in Mannar that got proposed, and it's completely situated right in the middle of the birds' migratory path. The migratory birds that are coming from many different paths, from Russia to Mongolia to Siberia to all of these places to Sri Lanka, comes through this path where we are going to develop a wind power project. And is enough controls, security and methods and mechanisms in place that we don't harm these birds if you're putting up a wind power plant is a question. Or are we damaging the groundwater table by digging up so that these large towers could be placed? So these are the questions that you need to look at. If not, otherwise, wind energy is one of the most sustainable and one of the most suitable energy sources for Sri Lanka. There is so much of potential that we can go to many other paths without doing so much of damage. And most importantly, looking at solar energy. What is happening around solar energy in Sri Lanka is, right now, as a conservationist, I cannot accept how we are integrating solar energy into our system. Solar energy is a very good energy, and it's one of the most easily tapped and one of the most sustainable energy sources. But if you're cutting our forest cover just to put up a solar power plant, I don't think it's acceptable, because Sri Lanka's per capita land availability is way less than India, and India has 1.4 billion of a population and Sri Lanka is just 22 million. So we need to use our lands effectively, productively and efficiently. So land-based solar in that context is definitely a big no, unless that these lands are already deforested and these lands are already used for a purpose other than any productive use, or it cannot be used for any other productive purposes. But what we are doing right now in terms of solar energy is that we are developing big large-scale solar farms in forest areas by deforesting, by making these areas deserts, by completely taking out good, grand, ecologically important vegetation. In Hambantota, right now, there are projects amounting to 150 megawatts to 500 megawatt of solar energy, and most of the lands are the habitats for 467 elephants that are in Hambantota. And these lands, Mahavali reserves or Mahavali forests, were kept as forests for the purpose of animals, wildlife to live, because Mahavali project itself deforested so much of areas. These Mahavali reserves are now being used to develop solar energy. While we have all the potential to develop solar in highways, in rooftops, private households, and many other areas in urban setting where the solar energy could be developed. And in addition to that, floating solar in so many Mahavali reservoirs that are available. But we go and decimate the managed elephant reserve in Hambantota for these 467 elephants to live after farmers themselves went on hunger strikes, protested over a 3 months of period during early 2020s, demanding that the government gazette these areas for elephants so that they can stay away from elephants. The elephants will stay away from their farmlands, their crop, their properties, so there won't be human-elephant conflict. These lands are acquired by different parties using underhand deals and by working with certain institutions so that they could get hold of these lands to set up big solar projects. Some of these companies that we know of and the investors are from India, and there are wealthy and powerful players in these solar projects who are occupying these lands. And finally, we have so much of highways that can generate thousands of megawatts of solar, and that will basically address the highway heat, the wear and tear of a highway, repair cost of a highway, and wear and tear of tires and vehicle maintenances in highways, and the fuel, it will reduce the fuel consumption in highways if you are using highway solarization. If you are using government buildings, it will cool down a lot of these buildings and the AC usage can be limited. And if you are using floating solar, Mahavali reservoirs could have been used and we could have generated so much of energy in Mahavali reservoirs. Of course, if we are again using it right by using 1/5 of the surface space of reservoirs, and that would have helped stop the evaporation. That means losing so much of water in Mahavali reservoirs as well. So there is so much of alternatives in place. I think it's time we look at using solar energy or generating solar energy in the right way and not doing it in a destructive way that you can no longer call it sustainable or renewable energy.